Hello and welcome to everyone. My name is Susan White. I am the creator and founder of S.A.V.E.D. This program that I've created is, and S.A.V.E.D stands for Sexually Abused Victims Emerging Daily. I've created this in order to not only create awareness, but for restoration and hope and healing for individuals who have been sexually abused. I'd like to now read my mission statement that is with the organization. My mission statement is as follows. We are committed to helping those who have been sexually abused by providing a path toward healing, hope, and a healthy lifestyle. We provide resources and referrals for mental health counseling for the victim, as well as educating the victim, friends, and family members about sexual abuse and how to cope, and moving forward through biblical principles as well to help the victim to break down the barrier walls that have occurred because of the sexual abuse. I've created this platform not just to be informative, but I also pray that the victims would like to also one day come on the show and share their stories, and we can begin from there with addressing the abuse, assessing, and then progressing to what we would consider restoration and the beginning of a new life and new hope. For the show, I like to give a disclaimer. My disclaimer is that the content that will be shared in the show would be might cause triggers in some that have either been sexually abused or that have friends or family member or know someone. This might trigger some feelings, thoughts, and emotions. If it is disturbing to you, I would encourage you to probably log off. So, to get started, what I'd like to do is to share my story. It's a success story now. However, it wasn't when I was younger. I, as a child, grew up in an amazing Christian home. My parents divorced at a young age. I was 10 years old. When I was 10 years old, my mother began dating again, and I was molested and sexually abused by a boyfriend of hers. I was 10 years old. I lost my virginity to a 35-year-old man. And at that time, because of my age, I was threatened. Don't say anything. My dog was the closest thing to me. I'm going to harm your dog, or I'm going to hurt your sister. Well, I didn't tell because I thought these things would happen. So this went on for about a year and a half of my life. My mother didn't know about it because I didn't tell. Not only did I not tell, it went on right in the same house because my mother allowed her boyfriend to spend the night at our house. She had a surgery, so she was kind of bedridden. So at night, or even sometimes during the day, he would molest me, sexually abuse me. Sexually abusing meaning he abused me anally, vaginally, and orally, and I was 10 years old. So as I went on about my preteen years, I had the urges and the needs and the wants to want to have sex. At the age of 13, I ended up pregnant. Still hadn't told my mother about the situation. My parents were pretty distraught. I ended up having to have an abortion at the age of 13 because I had become promiscuous. We moved away. Me and my mother and my sister, we moved away to North Carolina. Oh, I forgot to say I was born and raised in Washington, D.C. We moved away to North Carolina and to get a new start. And my mother ended up meeting someone else about in my 9th or 10th grade year. And she ended up marrying him. Well, this was my stepfather. We had a pretty good relationship. The family was, developing, the close-knit. And my mother used to always go to Bible study during the week. Church service. We would always, attend Bible study during the week and go to church services on Sundays. Well, this time, we didn't go with her to the Bible study. My stepfather was there at the house with us. My sister was sleeping. My stepfather, I was 15 years old. My stepfather raped me. And at that point, it was all too familiar. I'm going to say something this time. I'm not going to just let this happen to me again without saying anything. So I fled to a neighbor's house, to a girlfriend's house, and they called the police. He was arrested. My mother was called from the church. She was brought down to the station. I could hear her in the opposite room saying that she didn't believe it. I must have seduced him. I must have this. I must have that. And I cried because I couldn't believe that my mother was not believing in me. Didn't believe what the sheriffs had told her. So I was very distraught. I then gave statement after statement about the incident and what happened. And my mother still didn't believe me. She wanted to talk to me, but she was very irate, so they didn't allow her to talk to me. Well, I was taken to the hospital to do a rape kit. They did a rape kit, and lo and behold, he had raped me with a condom on. So the condom was still inside me, even after I took a shower, because I felt really dirty. Even after I took a shower, and the evidence was right there. So they arrested him, and after they arrested him, of course I had to go home with my mom. We did not have a good relationship. We kind of fell apart when I was 13. After I got pregnant, she just kind of didn't trust me, thought I was, just being rebellious. And so once we went to court, unfortunately, my mom was on his side of the courtroom and my grandparents were on my side. My mother still didn't believe me, even though the court case took a while. I still had to live with my mom. I was still there with my mom. We had it was a really, 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 the relationship was really, really hard. It was really hard. Still doing my daily chores, still going to school. Unfortunately, someone had written an article about it in the news, but they didn't state my name because I was a minor, but they stated your address. So, it's pretty much telling people what happened and where it happened. So it was a lot embarrassing to be a 10th grader. So we went to trial, and again, like I said, my mother was on one side, we were on the other, and he said obviously he was not guilty. They brought up the evidence. In the meantime, there was a social worker that was dealing with me, and she brought out the abuse from when I was 10. So in the courtroom, that was presented as far as what happened to me when I was 10, and now when I was 15, this second perpetrator seemed like he was about to get off too, because actually in the state of North Carolina, they made me seem like I was the bad person in this, and I was about to be 16, so I think they basically seemed like I was being tried as an adult, and it should have been the other way around, not tried for adult. I'm a victim. So he ended up being convicted, 8 years in North Carolina Penitentiary. At that time, my mom when the social, I'm sorry, let me go back. When the social worker had brought up that something had happened to me when I was 10 and now again at 15, the court ordered my mother not to have any males within 50-mile radius of the home until me and my sister, who is 3 years younger than me, were graduated from high school and moved on. So my mother was sentenced and so was he. It was a really, really stagnant relationship between me and my mother. I graduated high school 2 years later. After I graduated, I found out that my mother was visiting him in prison after the fact that he's already been locked up for raping her daughter. It hurt me. It paralyzed me. I had my emotions. I didn't know. I'm 15, 16 years old, now 18 years old, and not understanding why my mother didn't believe me. And so my mother, after he got out on good behavior, and my mother ended up going back to this man after it was proven in court what he had done to her daughter. And it was heart-wrenching that my mother never believed me. So she was back with him and she was intimate with him, but just not within 50-mile radius of the home. I share my story with you this day because there are so many others out there who are suffering from mental health issues, self-esteem issues. I myself, after all of this had happened to me, I ended up, after I was 21, I had my first child, I was drinking, struggled with alcohol, and then I ended up hanging around with the wrong crowd. I ended up exotic dancing, drinking my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I was an alcoholic as well. I had a powder cocaine addiction for 12 years. I did things that I'm not proud of. I did things that, after I finally ended up getting counseling and treatment for the sexual abuse, which I ended up getting counseling and treatment at the age of 33. I now understand that using the drugs and alcohol, and I was also escorting as well, not only exotic dancing. These were all things to try to mask the pain of the hurt, the shame, and just anger. I was trying to mask the pain with these things. So I wanted to do this. God has placed this vision on my heart to do this because I want to help those who at this present time either know someone or has been a victim of sexual abuse that has not spoke up or spoke out about it, because I went through a downward spiral of pure hell after I left home because I never got the proper counseling or treatment. As a child, I never got the proper counseling or treatment. So my life, the last 20 years, and I'm 47 now, was a pure hell. But I thank God that I've been healed, delivered, saved, set free. God is a deliverer. He's my healer. I just want to be able to give this platform to others. I welcome you to my show. I welcome you to meetings and conferences. I just ask that you share this, reach out to someone, or if you know someone who just can't talk about it, you can call us, you can write us, you can comment in my inbox on Facebook as well, and we are here to try to create restoration in one another's lives. Thank you for allowing me to share my story today. I am an overcomer. It's a lot I've been through, but I thank God I do not look like what I've been through. So today I have a very special guest with us, who's one of my near and dear friends. Her name is Dr. Pamela Pine. She is the founder and CEO of Stop the Silence, the organization whose purpose is to expose and stop child sexual abuse and assist survivors in the healing process. Dr. Pamela?
Thank you for the introduction. You're welcome.
Thank you. Dr. Pine has a PhD in public health and communication from the University of Maryland. She is working globally on programs toward improving the lives of poor people as well. Doctor, would you like to elaborate on your organization, Stop the Silence, for me?
Sure. The full name of the organization is Stop the Silence, Stop Child Sexual Abuse. We have been working in the arena of child sexual abuse prevention and mitigation for 18 years at this point. We began in 2000. We got our first grant in 2002. We were incorporated in 2004. And at this point, Stop the Silence is working in the United States, New Zealand. We've done work in the UK, and we have requests from Albania, Lithuania, Kenya, South Africa, Colombia, and a host of other countries. So we're gearing up for programming beyond the United States and beyond those boundaries as well. What we're trying to do at this point, we've tried a whole bunch of different types of mechanisms and capabilities of reaching people to help them become more aware, help them become more knowledgeable, and help them become more actionable on the preventing child sexual abuse, but also the mitigation of it, helping survivors heal, and also to bring organizations and nations, in fact, together to address the issue in a comprehensive fashion. So we've used all different types of mechanisms. As I said, we use art as advocacy. We bring in song and music and theater and film and still art. We also do a whole lot of training of all different types of service providers, social service workers, psychologists, therapists, police, judges, lawyers, nannies, everybody who has a hand in working with children, who can in fact work to prevent child sexual abuse from ever happening, intervene when they have found out that it has happened, and also provide the support for adolescent and adult survivors. That's in a very small and quick nutshell. We work very, very hard with all different types of groups, and I want to say, and this is very important for me to say, is that people that are coming forward with their stories in this way and on this show are fundamental to making a change overall in society. And that change is critical. What we know is more than 1 out of 4 girls and about 1 in 6 boys in the United States alone, is sexually abused by the time they're 18 years old. It usually starts around the age of 7. It usually peaks, the number of people being sexually abused at any one time peaks at about 13 or 14 years old. And the amount of problems that are associated with child sexual abuse psychologically and physically are enormous, and I think we're going to get into that a little bit. Yeah. So this is a critical show, and people coming forward with their information that people can identify with and learn through is enormously important. So congratulations to you.
Thank you so much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank you. So, Dr. Pine, I would like to, if you would, can you explain to the audience, and we were just talking about it, can you explain to the audience the repercussions of not getting the treatment or counseling from sexual violence?
Yeah, children who, by the way, hardly ever make this up. It's an incredibly low percentage of children who come forward with accusations of child sexual abuse who have actually made it up. I mean, just think about it. If a 7-year-old, for example, comes forward and is telling explicit stories about sexual acts, where did they come up with that? They shouldn't even know anything about that. So they've either heard it or seen it or experienced it. The implications of not doing something about child sexual abuse.
Hello, viewers. We had some technical difficulties. We are back. Please view us again on Facebook Live, on Wbgr Network, on Facebook Live, and on my page, Susan White page. Dr. Pamela.
Thank you. So I'm just going to reiterate a few things. In the United States, more than 1 out of 4 girls and about 1 out of 6 boys is sexually molested by the time they're 18 years old. Most of the molestation starts between the ages of 7 and 9. And at that age, of course, a child is needing and expecting to be cared for and protected by an adult. The reality is that the vast majority of people who molest children are known and have regular access to those kids. That's about 90% of the perpetrators. 90% know and have access to the kids. It's the 10% that's the smallest part, and those are the people who are strangers, the internet stuff. So what we're talking about is our communities and our families. About 30% of all child sexual abuse in the United States is committed by family members. We have a huge problem with community and family. So a child is expecting to be protected, they're not protected, and that creates an enormous amount of confusion and fear in the child. They're also manipulated, they're groomed, so a lot of psychological problems and a lot of physical problems, which I think we'll talk about in a minute as well.
Yes. Thank you.
Sure.
So I've often had the question posed to me, what is sexual assault? And I'm going to give you the clinical definition of sexual assault. Sexual assault is any type of sexual contact or behavior that occurs without the explicit consent of the recipient. Falling under the definition of sexual assault are sexual activities as forced sexual intercourse, forcible sodomy, child molestation, incest, fondling, and attempted rape or rape. With that being said, Dr. Pamela, as far as the mental health issues that stem from a child not being able to get the proper treatment, after an assault, can you elaborate on that for me?
Sure. Children, as I started to say, children need and have a right to expect themselves to be protected by the adults that are supposed to be protecting them. And when those adults instead are harming them, the amount of confusion in a child's mind is enormous. Many of you probably also saw the movie, for example, Precious. And there are some really, really good scenes in that. There are scenes where Precious as a child is being molested by her father, and in her mind she goes off into fantasy land. It's an escapist behavior. And there's a wonderful quote by a Dr. S.A.V.E.D, who is the researcher and author behind the ACE study, the Adverse Childhood Experiences study, and I'll talk a little bit about that afterwards. But what we know from the ACE study is that the trauma that a child is impacted by with regard to child sexual abuse, which also, by the way, includes pornography and exposure to the child and voyeurism. The amount of trauma that a child is exposed to and that they try to escape from is also fracturing in psychologically. So I had mentioned before a bunch of various types of psychological outcomes that often result from child sexual abuse: clinical depression, bipolar disorders, psychosis, personality disorders. And when a child doesn't get the support and the help that they need, psychologically, neurologically, they are impacted and potentially for life. So it's a very serious situation. It's very serious not to believe a child. It's very serious not to get them the help that they need to heal. It's very serious not to continue to protect them. So in your case, Susan, the fact that your mom did what she did, which was not believe you, not protect you, is all that much more of an assault. I frankly, I'm not a survivor of child sexual abuse. People ask me, it doesn't matter whether they think I am or they're not, but I tell people, and the reason I tell people that I'm not is partly to underline and recognize the strength of people like you. Because I don't think I'd be standing. I don't think I'd be standing. And what it takes someone like you, survivors, to get through the amount of trauma and to heal is incredible. And your strength in speaking out, your strength in just being where you are today is amazing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's true.
I gotta give honor to God for that, because I don't believe that. I believe that without God, I wouldn't have been able to make it. Also, I think I left out when I was telling my story that I also tried to commit suicide 3 times, but I'm still standing. So I just thank God for that. And my strength, I want to strengthen with the strength that God has given me. I want to strengthen others for the transformation, the restoration, the empowerment that you can overcome these obstacles. You can there is hope for an abundant life and a better future for you. You can do it. I did it. So you can do it. I wrote something, and I'd like to read it to you. And it was in my thoughts of overcoming and trying to help others to kind of understand, I guess, my steps in overcoming. So I wrote, I'm not going to give it all to you because it's actually going to be in one of my books that I'm currently writing. I've written a book about my life. I'm having it edited now, but this is a second book that I'm writing, and so I would like to share with you something I wrote. So the name of this would be, the second book is called Cleansing the Mind One Day at a Time. And so I'll read an excerpt. So what I did was I broke it down into ABCs. It's simple and plain as that. You can overcome just like ABC 1, 2, 3. But you have to want. You have to want it. Change is a choice. It's a choice. And if you want you want that life changing, you want to let it out and to be heard. You know, I couldn't be heard. I was muffled. So it's a choice to want to step up, step out, have a voice. I love, there's a scripture, Proverbs 31:8, about speak out for the voiceless, and speak up and speak out for the voiceless. I love that because that's what my plan is, and I believe that's why God created this vision in me. So the first excerpt is called Address and Acknowledge. You can overcome the adversity by first acknowledging the truth and then allowing your mind, body, and spirit to begin its healing process. Now, this means to address that thing and forgive yourself and others for even allowing things to go this far. We all have visions. I say, then do it. Do it now. What are you waiting for? You know that thing which has caused you not to pursue your dreams and goals? I promise you that by acknowledging that there's a problem and facing it head on, it's never too late. You will always have the ability to change. Sometimes we alter our outside appearance and knowing full well that we are afraid to admit that there is some major issues deep within. We must admit and accept that there are things that have happened to us that have thrown us off track from our divine purpose. Or even those things that might have happened to ourselves, so that someone might have done to us in our personal lives that may have caused a hindrance for God's purpose and plan in our lives. The key is not to be afraid of getting acquainted with who we truly are, flaws and all. Nobody's perfect. You must love you first before others can love you. Don't be afraid to acknowledge any hurt or shame. Just know that by acknowledging the hurt or shame, I'm not saying it was okay for anyone at any time to hurt you in any way or hurt someone else mentally or physically. There are two things that you must do. You must address and assess the issues that are hindering you from an amazing, abundant life. What I'm quite frankly saying is that you can overcome any obstacle. These very things are the things that are holding you back. Affliction, addiction, adversity is truly uncomfortable, but you shall overcome. Amen. So I wrote that. I also have a scripture to go with that, and that is Isaiah 41:10. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand. There's a lot more, but I don't want to continue reading and give away the whole book. I want to empower people to know that you have a voice. Speak up. I understand and we're back. We are having some technical difficulties in the studio. I think that there's thunder and rain out here in the Maryland area. I last was speaking of, the mission and why I'm doing this, and it is my prayer that others will join in. Again, I'm working to get working with businesses to organize meetings, similar to Narcotics Anonymous and AA, but this will be for S.A.V.E.D, and it will be a safe place where individuals who have been involved or victim involved, where their family member or friend or even the victim can come and share their story amongst others, feel safe and comfortable, in order to just have a starting point towards healing. That right there in itself will be phenomenal, because like Dr. Pine said, it's the strength within. You have to push towards that. It took a lot for me to tell my story. I didn't start telling my story till 5 years ago. So it took a lot. I have, expressed it on Facebook, expressed it with friends, spoke with organizations, and it's something that is from the heart, and I know that it needs to be said, and I want to just help as many victims as possible, whether it be locally, nationally, globally. I'm in it to win it, and in it to help others. Dr. Pine, was there anything else that you wanted to share?
Just the ACEs in particular. The Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, what that study showed, and underlining how critical this is. The problems are not only psychological. the problems manifest themselves physically. Obviously, in terms of tissue tearing, for example, little kids. But way beyond that, there is an absolute relationship, and a very strong one, between child sexual abuse as well as other childhood traumas. Having a parent, for example, who is an alcoholic, being physically abused, being emotionally abused, having a family member, a parent who was incarcerated while you were a child. All of those are adverse experiences that are traumatizing to the child. And all of those things contribute to psychological problems as well as physical problems. And the physical problems go so far as to have a very, very strong relationship to all different types of chronic disease, cancer, heart disease, hypertension, and the manifestation of early death, in fact. So we're not talking about something, oh, she'll forget about it, oh, he'll forget about it. The body will hold the scars, and the neurology will impact that person potentially for the rest of their lives. If we want to clean up society, we need to deal with the issue of childhood trauma, including child sexual abuse. There's no way around it. The amount of lost productivity, for example, that we experience as a society, the amount of money that we spend in cleanup between teachers and lawyers and psychologists and doctors and judges and police and all of those, we're wasting our human capacity. And we need to take this seriously, as difficult as that may be, and do something fundamentally different in the way we address it in terms of prevention and in terms of treatment and in terms of mitigation.
Thank you. You touched on something as far as the mental health. I didn't even realize that most of my adulthood, I was suffering with major depressive disorder, anxiety, some psychosis, because with the trauma, I had flashes, flashbacks, right, every now and then. No matter what I was doing, right, as an adult, washing dishes or cooking, it would always flash. Yeah. I would have flashes, and it paralyzes you, it scares you. It's like, why is this coming up now? And you don't understand it until I went and I sought treatment, counseling, and then I had a better understanding of, okay, this is why I'm feeling this way. This is why I can't move forward. This is why I start something and I don't want to finish it. This is why I had all of these things that were against me, because I never got the help or the treatment that I needed. And it is just so important to do that, because as my grandma used to say, I wish I knew then what I know now. So I just want to give some information on numbers to call if a loved one has been a victim of sexual abuse. We are located in the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, but this first number is for RAIN, and that's the Rape, Assault, Incest National Network, and they are 24/7. The number for RAIN is 1-800-656-4673, and that's a national sexual abuse hotline. Also, there's a new, well, it's kind of new to some, there's a line called the Crisis Text Line. Now, what that is you, if you're feeling depressed, if you're having a bad day, you just want to talk to somebody, or if you know that you want to start there and break the ice, you want to talk about an assault that's happened to you, whether it's sexual abuse, whether it's domestic violence, whether you're contemplating suicide, anything like that, you can contact the Crisis Text Line. So you would text the word HOME, HOME, to 741-741, and that's 24/7. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Also, because we're located in D.C., there is the D.C. Rape Crisis Line. The number is 202-232-0789. Also, I want to let you know that as of right now, if you have any questions, you want to book me for speaking engagements, I am willing to travel. I would love to speak at any organization, whether it be a church, any type of organization. I can speak to the people about this topic that a lot of people don't want to talk about. And I believe, I guess, I often had the thought that, and me being a believer, I'm a woman of God, I often had the thought that at one point I would sit in church and I would, we know what we believe, and we know that God is a healer, and we know that God is a deliverer. At one point, you hear the word, you understand the word, but at one point I was thinking, but I need to talk to somebody about this thing, this abuse, this sexual abuse. At some point, I needed to talk to somebody about the abuse, but I didn't feel like I could go to a pastor or a minister or a deacon, or I felt like, well, they never really talk about this subject in church, whether it was sexual abuse, drugs and alcohol, promiscuity, mental health issues. We all go through something. But this topic of sexual abuse, I believe that we need to have more dialogue in the churches, because yes, we go to church. Yes, we believe. Yes, we're faithful. Yes, we know God is a great God and that we can do all things through him. But a lot of us are still, there are people right now that are in the church struggling with drug addiction. There are people right now in the church that are still struggling with abuse, domestic violence. Yes, those people are gone, or what have you. They removed themselves from the situation, but that scar is still there. So I want to encourage all of my viewers that you can contact me at on my email at this time. My next show, I'll give you other information of how you can contact me, but you can contact me at S.A.V.E.D, and that's S-A.V.E.D inspiringchange@gmail.com. If you are a viewer that would like to speak to me about possibly being a guest on the show, we can talk about that as well. But I'm up for sharing this amazing word with anyone. And also, you can reach me on Twitter at S.A.V.E.D, S-A-V-E-D, globally. Also on Facebook Live as well as Susan White. And I will next week have the page, the Facebook page. It's in the works. This is the first show. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. And
I just want to give,
yes.
if I may, and website is somewhere on here. But in any case, Stop the Silence. We have a regular web page, which is stopthesilence.org, stopthesilence.org, and we also have 2 Facebook pages.
Yes,
and they are for survivors primarily, to get support from other survivors as well as Stop the Silence staff. So that's facebook.com/stopcsa, facebook.com/stopcsa, and the other one that is a closed group where you could really speak your mind and get the support that you want or need, which is facebook.com/groups/Nikki Love, because that's who set up the page. It's NIKKILOVE. So facebook.com/groups/Nikki Love, and you can join those groups and get support from other survivors as well as Stop the Silence staff.
Awesome. I want to thank God for putting this vision in me. I also want to thank my pastors. I want to thank my sister, my parents, my stepmother, and my father. I also want to thank my beautiful children, that without them inspiring me to fulfill, pursue this dream of mine and fulfill this vision, I probably wouldn't have done it. I would have done it, but it took a lot longer. Dantes and Jasmine, Mommy loves you. I thank God for my children, because through it all, when I was out there on drugs and alcohol and dealing with these the unacceptable out in the streets, God kept my children. They weren't with me at the time. Obviously, they had been removed from my home, so they were given back to me once I got myself together. I don't think I ever told you. I stopped the downward spiral of self-destruction at the age of 33. So I was out there from the age of 23 to 21 to 33, and I just thank God for keeping me and covering me. I am blessed. I look forward to seeing you all on the next show. The next show we will elaborate more on getting the help, and I will have more special guests. Again, reach out to me on Twitter and on Facebook. On Twitter, it's S.A.V.E.D globally, and you can always email me with any dialogue, questions, or concerns. And I believe that's it. Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you, and we pray to hear from you. The next show, one more thing. The next show, you will be able to call in. If you want to call in, you want to be anonymous. And if you want to be anonymous and call in and share your story, you can do that. So the next show, we'll have call-ins. The number here is 301-429-9247. Again, my name is Susan White, and I thank you for tuning in.